Welcome to the Life Coach University Conference on the secret on how to reach your goals. Don't we all want to reach our goals? I am obsessed with goals, and anyone who knows me could attest to that. So my name is Anna Wallner. I will be your host today, and I am just so excited to be with you all. Now, we are going to go to Norma. So Norma, get ready. I am going to come for you. Norma is a life coach for weight loss, and she helps women who are done with dieting to learn how to lose weight their way. And it's amazing. And Norma, she's going to talk about setting small incremental goals today to stay motivated and focused. Hi,
there we go.
Norma. So great to see you, to have you here.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. I'm really honored to be here to talk to you today about the power of setting small incremental goals that keep you motivated to achieve those big, seemingly impossible goals. And as Anna said, my name is Norma Frahn, and I'm a life coach for weight loss. And 4 years ago, I lost over 100 pounds through the transformative power of coaching. And that journey led me to become a coach. And now I work with my one-on-one clients in my Weight Loss Your Way private coaching program. When I first started out on my personal weight loss journey, I had no belief, just zero, that I could lose 100 pounds. I mean, why would I? Diet after diet had failed. And losing 100 pounds, in my mind, was just an anomaly, something that could never happen to me. But one of the most important lessons I learned, and frankly, it was the thing that kind of kept me going through the entire process, was understanding the power of meeting myself where I am and implementing small incremental goals that supported me in that space and time. And in the beginning, when I thought about that end result of 100 pounds lost, it seemed so far away. I couldn't relate to it. And when I couldn't relate to it, I couldn't get started. And I think we probably all kind of had that feeling. And oftentimes what happens when we can't get started, we start looking outside of ourselves for the answers and then try to follow someone else's process, which never works. So I knew I had to figure out a process that kept me going, that felt doable for me in that moment. So I did what seemed logical. I started with the numbers and I did the math. My goal in the beginning, I wanted to lose 100 pounds in a year. And when I broke that down, that was 8 pounds a month. That felt a little reasonable. But then I went a little further and I went down to what it would be weekly. And it came out to just a little over 2 pounds a week. Then I got scared again. 2 pounds every week consistently for a year absolutely did not feel reasonable to me. So I sat back and I asked myself, what if I dropped that time element of 100 pounds in 1 year that I was trying so hard to hold myself to? And kind of like what Tonya was just talking about, that time element, it's going to happen. So I started to think about what I wanted to do. And I decided it didn't matter if it took me a year, 2 years, or 3 years. I was going to lose that 100 pounds. My first small change was going to be just to allow the process to take as long as it takes. And then suddenly that 100 pounds felt a little more achievable without all that pressure of getting it done in 1 year. And I knew I was onto something then. So I had to remind myself, though, every day that I wasn't going to focus on that end result of 100 pounds anymore. I'm focusing on today and nothing else. And that's when my practice of setting small incremental goals took hold. So just to give you a little bit of sense of what that looks like, basically what I would do is sit down each week in the very beginning and decide what I could do in that week that would get me closer. I figured out what I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I could accomplish in that week, and I made a plan. So just so you can see what it looks like, the first few weeks, it was drinking 64 ounces of water every day. I could do that. That was a no-brainer. The other thing I tried was writing a food plan every day. That was a little bit of a stretch, but it still felt doable. And I also included having a vegetable with at least one meal a day. So 3 very simple, small little steps. And I stuck with that until I had those 3 things completely unlocked. I didn't have to think about it anymore. I just did it. And then I met myself where I was at again, and I was ready to level up my goal to do the next doable thing. So I increased my water to 80 ounces. I kept playing with the planning, and I added vegetables to 2 meals a day. And then somewhere along the way, I decided I wanted some movement. So I added a little bit of yoga 3 days a week for 10 minutes. And I kept going with that process. And when I had that unlock, I added yet more. I leveled up again. I added vegetables to 3 meals a day. And yes, you can figure out how to have vegetables for breakfast. That was a big stopper for me for a while. And then I moved on to 5 days of yoga. And then I went up to 20 minutes of yoga. And I just kept going with these little small incremental goals. So I think the best analogy I could come up with, and I hope this lands, my process was kind of like compounding interest. I think everybody knows what that is. It's something that some financial institutions do when you take out a loan. Interest, or a small percentage of the amount you borrowed, is compounded daily until all of a sudden it feels like you're paying more in interest than the original loan. But the effects of small incremental goals compounding over time is very similar to compounding interest, only it works in our favor. Every time you set a small goal, achieve it, set another goal and achieve it, you're compounding your motivation, your self-confidence, and the belief that you can actually achieve that big goal. I incrementally continued to level up my process. And every time I leveled up, I created more motivation and more confidence in myself. And around the 6-month mark, I'd lost almost 50 pounds. That's half of that big, scary, impossible goal I had in the beginning. And it was done all on the back of these small incremental changes to my process. So my last tip for you for achieving your goals, and this is so important, when you do these small incremental changes, be sure to manage the expectations you have of your process. For most goals, and especially weight loss, your results will not be linear, meaning there's going to be ups and downs and periods of no change, and this is completely normal. There were times when I experienced weeks and months of no movement on the scale. But when I started to experience those extended periods of no change, I knew it was time to look at my process and determine where an adjustment might be necessary or where I just needed to tighten up some things. So when this happens, I just want you to remember it's never a you problem. It's always a process problem. Go back to your process, examine it objectively, and make a shift. Before you know it, with setting those small, incrementally little goals, they level up over time, and you're going to achieve that big goal that once seemed so completely impossible. So thank you all for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference.
So good, Norma. I
Thank
just
you.
love that when you said with the compounding interest, that just by setting these incremental small goals, that we will actually compound our motivation and confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And in the moment, sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And we tend to tell ourselves that we're not doing enough, but we really are. When you think about how it compounds over time, just like the interest, we're doing exactly enough.
I think that's so good. And I know that firsthand because you've been coaching me for a year. And
my favorite client.
Yes. And it's just changed my entire life. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had, and the shifts I've had, is to learn how to do that. Because one of the biggest problems I think that you touched upon is like that we want to do everything at once.
Yes, absolutely. That's like overhaul your whole life. And it usually always backfires. It's just too much. It's too much. And we can't believe it. And like I was saying in the beginning, when you don't believe, you can't move forward.
But when it comes to belief, since belief, we all know that belief is a super huge thing. Mm-hmm. Do you have any sort of tip when it comes to working on that belief that people who are watching could sort of take?
Yeah, and in my story, and what I've seen so often with my clients is that there usually is this big weight loss goal. And like I said, I didn't believe it. I had zero belief that I could do it. But when I took a step back and took the time element out, and stopped worrying about that big goal and started only focusing on 1 week at a time, sometimes one day at a time, and started and really recognized my progress in that little tiny time window, I was able to start believing, because as time gone on and as things compounded, I was seeing results. And typically when you start seeing results, the belief starts to kick in. And that was the best way I found to do it.
That's so good, because I think the time element is something that we use against us so often.
Absolutely.
Ah,
Absolutely.
that is so good, Norma. I think you left us with so much clarity. So a million thanks.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to do this.